Number one, x squared plus 12x plus 32. Here we're asked to factor the expression. And anytime you see that word factor in the directions, make sure you first look to see if there's a greatest common factor. In most cases, there won't be, but in a lot of cases, there may be something that you can take out of all of these terms. So you want to look at the three terms that we've got here and see, well, can we take an x out? Cannot take an x out of everything. And number-wise, no number we can take out of all three of these. So for the greatest common factor, check. Nothing comes out of that one. Next, it's a trinomial. So trinomials will factor into two parentheses. So you can start off by writing those. The first thing in both those parentheses has got to multiply to be this first term here, the x squared. So two things that multiply to be x squared, x and x. And then if you're factoring a trinomial and all the signs are positive, you can go ahead and put a positive in the middle there. And then the terms on the end of both those binomial parentheses have to multiply to be the number on the end there. So you might on the side make a list of things that multiply to be 32. So 1 and 32, 2 and 16, 3 doesn't go in, 4 and 8, 5 doesn't go into 32, 6 doesn't go into 32, 7 doesn't, and then we're back up to 8. So this is a whole list. And what we want to do is find a pair that adds to 12. And you'll only do this if the number in front of x squared is 1. But we're looking for two numbers here that multiply to be 32 and add to 12. So you can go ahead and put in 4 and 8. And that's it. Number 2, factor m squared minus 9mn plus 14n squared. So again, you see that word factor. The first thing you want to do is check to see if there's a greatest common factor, something you can take out of everything. And here we cannot take m out of everything, so no greatest common factor here. Second, it's a trinomial. So trinomials are going to factor into two parentheses. First thing in both of those parentheses is going to need to be multiply to be m squared. So m and m both multiply to be m squared. And we don't have pluses up here. If we did, you could just put plus and plus in, but I'll go ahead and skip the sign just for now. The things on the end have to multiply to be that 14n squared. The 14 could be a couple different things, but the n squared part, that's going to be n and n. So we want two things that multiply to be 14. So 1 and 14, 2 and 7, and keep going up this list here. 3 doesn't go into 14, 4, 5, 6, and then you're back up to 7 on the left. So you've got, or on the right. So you've got everything there. So we're looking for a pair that we can make negative 9 out of. So we could make negative 9 out of the 2 and the 7 if both of the signs were negative. Negative 2 times negative 7 would give us a positive 14, and it would also add to be negative 9. So I'll write that out. Multiplies to 14, adds to negative 9. And again, you're looking for the adds to negative 9 part if the number in front of m squared is 1. We'll look at some in the next section where we've got different numbers in front of m squared, maybe a 3, maybe a 5, something like that. And we'll work those out a little bit differently. But negative 2 and negative 7, we can go ahead and plug those in. Number 3, 2x squared minus 4x minus 30. So we want to check to see if there's a greatest common factor here. Hopefully you notice that we can take 2 out of everything. So this one we'll take 2 out of, and then before we do anything else, we're going to rewrite these with the 2 removed. So basically, we're dividing each term by 2. So 2 out of the first term gives us x squared. If you take negative 4 and you divide it by 2, you get negative 2. And we did not take the x out. Negative 30 divided by 2 gives us negative 15. So this is one where there's actually going to be a couple steps that we're going to do. So this first step where we take out the greatest common factor, and then the next step where we've got a trinomial here on the inside of those parentheses that we're going to factor a little bit further. So that's going to be 2 parentheses. X and x is going to make the x squared, and then we need 2 things to multiply to be negative 15. And by the way, make sure you keep bringing down that greatest common factor. So we've got negative 15. That could be 1 and 15. Could be 2 doesn't go into 15, but 3 does. 3 and 5. 4 doesn't go in, and then you're back up to 5. So we need a pair that we can make negative 2 out of. The 3 and the 5 we could make negative 2 out of if the 5 is negative. So again, I just want to highlight these multiply to negative 15. 3 times negative 5 would be negative 15. And they add to negative 2. So positive 3, negative 5. Number 4, 4x to the 4th minus 3x to the 3rd plus 72x squared. Factor again. And in this case, they're all even, so you can at least take a 2 out. And if you check these a little bit closer, you can also take a 4 out. And you'll want to take out the greatest common factor. That's what the G stands for. So out of the 2 and the 4, you'll want to take out the larger of those, the 4. And then when you've got variables, you also want to check to see if there's any variables you can take out. We've got x in every single one of those terms. We can actually take out 2 of them out of every one of those terms. And then we're going to rewrite what's left. So if you take 4 out of the first term and then 2 of the x's, you're left with 2 x's behind. Negative 36 divided by 4 is negative 9. And we took out 2 x's, so it leaves just 1. And then also 72 divided by 4 gives you 18. And we took out 2 of the x's, so no x's left on that one. And then next we'll go a little bit farther with that trinomial that's inside that parentheses. So 2 parentheses. Make sure you bring down the 4x squared. So we need 2 things that multiply to be x squared, x and x. It's not plus and plus up here, so we'll skip the signs in the middle there for a minute. And the last 2 things have to multiply to be positive 18. So on the side here, 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6. 4 doesn't go into 18, 5 doesn't go into 18, and then we're back up to 6 on the right side. So need a pair that adds to be negative 9. We can get negative 9 out of both of those if their signs are both negative. Negative 3 and negative 6. 2 negatives multiply to be a positive 18. And then when we add them, they do add to be negative 9. So negative 3 and negative 6. Number 5, negative 2x squared plus 4x plus 16. Factor, first thing, greatest common factor. And hopefully you notice here that we can take 2 out of every one of those terms. And one little thing here, if you've got a negative, if you're factoring something that starts with a negative, it's usually a good idea to factor out a negative. So not only we're going to take out that common factor of 2, we're actually going to take out a negative 2. And then from there, we can't take any x's out, so that's the most that we can take out. And then you just want to write what's left. When we take negative 2 out of the first term, we're left with just both of those x's. And moving on, 4x divided by negative 2, that's going to give you negative 2x. And then 16 divided by negative 2 is negative 8. Going just a little bit further, bring the negative 2 on the outside down. That trinomial is going to hopefully factor into two parentheses. So we've got x and x, and then we need two things that multiply to be negative 8. Could be 1 and 8. Could be 2 and 4. 3 doesn't go into negative 8, and then you're back up to 4. So we need a pair that we can make, that we can add to be negative 2. And we could get that from 2 and 4 as long as the 4 is negative. So these would multiply to negative 8 and then add to negative 2. So positive 2, negative 4. Number 6, b squared minus 3b minus 3. Check to see if there's a greatest common factor. Can't take b out of everything. So no common factor there. Again, it's 3 terms, so we've got a trinomial that will factor into 2 parentheses, hopefully. The first thing in both those parentheses has to multiply to b squared, so b and b, and then the last thing in both of those parentheses has to multiply to be negative 3. Not a lot of options there, just 1 and 3 are the only things that can multiply to be 3. And then it's just a question of what the signs would need to be in order to get them to add to be negative 3. But if you look at these numbers here, 1 and 3, no matter what we do with them, we cannot add them to be negative 3. If you add them as they are, you could get 4. If you subtract them, you could get some version of 2, positive or negative. But we cannot get negative 3, so cannot add the negative 3 no matter what we do with the signs. So this one isn't factorable. So you have a little options there. Not factorable. And then just click that. Number 7, a squared minus 12a plus 32. This is pretty straightforward. It's a lot like the first example that we looked at, only they want you to sort of organize your answer a little bit differently than we've been doing. But basically, you could just factor this like normal. I'll do this below. Got a and a. Then we need two things that multiply to be 32 and then add to be negative 12. So 32 could be 1 and 32. 2 and 16, 3, 4 and 8, 5 doesn't go in, 6 doesn't go in, 7 doesn't go in, and then we're back up to that 8 on the right side. So looking for a pair that would be add to be negative 12, you could get that with the 4 and the 8, as long as both of them are negative. Negative 4 plus negative 8 is negative 12, and they happen to multiply to be positive 32 here. So we want both those things. So negative 4, negative 8. And you'll notice here on the right side, they've got half of the parentheses there already. All they want you to do really here is fill in what the second parentheses is. So we ended up with a minus 8, a minus 4. We'll just need to fill in that a minus 4 part. And this part is actually the only thing that you'll fill in on the answer to this one.